Good evening. Welcome to our January 14th Finance Committee meeting. We will begin with introductions beginning over here.
Jeff Hanley.
Becky Fless,
Megan Carlson.
Tony V. Sean Polk.
administrative staff.
Pat Hopkins, Superintendent.
Gabe Dostey, Facilities Director.
And Terry McGuire.
Director of Technology.
Thank you very much. Alrighty. First thing on the agenda is a discussion about EMC Energy Report. And fortunately, we have Tom Seekins and his counterpart. I'll hand it over to you.
Well, I would first just kind of again to lay the groundwork for anyone who's watching for the first time. So back in the spring, the school board hired EMC to go through all of our facilities to do a complete assessment. It was for twofold. One, you were submitting a construction application, and so we thought that this could strengthen the construction applications that were submitted, but also to really take a look at whether there was an energy efficiency contract, and if there were anything that we could do to help reduce current operational cost by upgrading some of our facilities. So they did a comprehensive assessment of all of our facilities. You have all received copies of those documents. And so you were asked to review those prior to the meeting. We thought it was going to be last month. It's this month. Unfortunately, that was a communication snafu. So they're here today to kind of go through exactly what those projects, what the deficiencies are, and then whether there are any projects that the school board wishes to pursue. Do want to spend, just to say thank you to EMC, and they've spent a lot of time here. They've met with our staff. They've gone above and beyond what typically they would do for other school districts, and they have been phenomenal. So I really want to thank them for that. And, keeping in mind, they have not charged us a dime at this point. If you move forward with a project for them, it's kind of built into, the fee is built into that. If you choose not to move forward, then there will be a fee assessed to help cover some of their costs that they've incurred over the last few months. So they've done a great job. We really enjoyed working with EMC, and pleased to have them here tonight to do this presentation.
All right, thank you, Pat. Yeah, I mean, the real intention, right, is to help you build a capital road plan, roadmap plan for the next year to 10 years on the deficiencies you have in the district. And like every district in Maine that we do these with and have done for 20 years, there's always more deficiencies than there is budget dollars, But while you're doing an energy efficiency analysis, we're also looking for things along the way. We look at literally everything from life safety devices, fire alarm, well, indoor air quality is considered life safety as well. ADA compliance for bathrooms, just structural integrity aspects of the buildings, windows, which is part of building envelope, doors, all these things that have an impact of, the DNA of your buildings, and also portions of the buildings that are not meeting current requirements in regards to ventilation. That's a big deal, right? Especially with a lot of the schools you see in the news that you don't want to be in the news about lack of ventilation or poor indoor air quality. You guys also wanted us to investigate places where we feel indoor air quality can be improved upon, right? And identify it so that you can start making provisions for making those improvements. So that's what this report represents. And the electronic version of this tool, if you click on one of these, for example, building envelope, like I just mentioned, it brings you to that section of the report, because this report is 67 pages long. And if you're looking for one thing, you just dive right to it. Every one of these, the 4.1 build basement insulation, that's also the same delineation that we have in our Excel tool that shows you where all the costs are and the savings are related to that measure. So the nice thing about this is, in the beginning, we really isolate the things in red that are just well beyond their useful life. And there's an ASHRAE standard, which is what we use for life expectancy for all equipment, which is right here. 62.1 ventilation standards, there's an ASHRAE standard to that. So these things that are highlighted above are not things that we just kind of arbitrarily pick and say, that's way beyond its life. This is all based on, factual information. Now, that being said, the last time we tried to breeze through all this several months ago, there's way too much here to even make sense of every one of these measures. So we've kind of drilled that into a PowerPoint and also a phased approach for you to consider. We've actually printed it out when we get to that point. So I'm just going to go through these slides real quick and just kind of focus on the things that we found. Just jump right to the beginning. So we did it by school. We found these measures to be amongst the ones that should be considered under a potential phase 1. And then we've moved a bunch to phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. We literally just did this for another school system that's very close by, where it literally created their capital plan for them. So this year they have things in their budget, the following year they have things in their budget, and that might get shifted based on funding allowances and, things that pop up or don't. So, but it is a roadmap to consider. And so when folks in the community hear, why haven't we done the new ventilation in the gym at the middle school? Well, we identified it as something that needed to be done. We just didn't have the money to do it at that time, right? So things like this cooling tower and why that's important. Obviously, this is beyond its useful life, has been showing signs of pretty severe decay and rust, as most of this Gabe knows all too well, and does the best that he can with the tools that he's got in front of him. And this is just something that should be considered for replacement. It's a vital part of the cooling aspect.
Has it been communicated back and forth? Because I know we've had this talk here that there's certain things that we can't replace because we're still financing it. Has that been communicated to you guys or?
It has. Actually, I went ahead and called Bank of America because they're the one who financed this project for you the first time. And literally nothing that we're touching has any impact on that first project that you did at all. And I actually asked the rep who did the original financing to email me back, which I sent to Pat and Becky and Gabe and Andrea to let them know that they verified there's nothing that's going to be, you're not penalized for anything. So.
And Andrea has been communicating with the school attorney who specializes in this particular area. Unfortunately, Andrea's sick and could not be with us this evening, otherwise she would be able to respond. Now, Andrea did forward to all of you a communication from our attorney, so you have that in your email that talks about the types of work that would have to be done if you didn't want to go out to bond, if you just wanted to do this type of lease purchase.
Yep.
Like we've done in the past. So you should have that in your email.
Most of these are done in my 21 years of doing these. 99% of them have been done through a tax-exempt lease purchase, and primarily because they are much more flexible than a bond. The interest rates are fairly equitable. There might be 20 basis points difference right now in the market. I follow it pretty heavily. You can prepay these. There is a little bit to do with if you sell a building or get rid of a building that you had aspects of your last project in that building, but I'm pretty sure that would be the same thing no matter what you use as a funding vehicle, right? So I'll just say this, it doesn't matter to us how they're financed. I'm just telling you what schools have found for the past 2 decades doing these to be the easiest way to finance them. And you guys make the decision ultimately, rather than just doing all this great work and then it's a vote on a ballot slip that no one really knows what it's for, right? So yes, but no, good question. I verified, I had Bank of America email back so you could see it and their contact if you had any questions about it.
Right.
So, yep. This is an air handler for the gym and band room. This is obviously well beyond its useful life. It does not heat, it does not recover any heat at all. And it's basically a modified fan coil on the roof that is just extremely inefficient. Anything else about this, Adam?
No, it's just like he said, there's no heat recovery on it, so you get a lot of wasted energy when it's running. Heat recovery is gonna recover the heat from the space and recirculate it, so that was one measure. What's that?
How do you recover heat in that?
There's a special core exchanger. As the air passes through there, it transfers energy that way.
Oh,
So
it's
when it's exhausting
air,
it's-
heat exchange?
Yep.
Okay.
Right now, you're just bringing in outside air and exhausting it. So it's the least efficient way of doing it, but it's also well beyond its life. So it just needs to be addressed. Everything in this slide deck we pulled from the report as being something that we feel is something that's immediate based on its age, based on the fact there is no ventilation, or it's, you know, it's already having issues. So there's nothing in
What building's this in?
high school.
Okay,
Yeah, this first section is the high school.
okay.
This is an air handler that has R22 refrigerant, which is now 2 revisions past, so it's obsolete. And it's just showing severe decay in it, so that's something that should be, as you can see there, the floor is essentially rusting out, so it's something that should be considered for replacement. This is the C-wing bookshelves. This is the part that we feel is probably of most concern. And talking to Gabe and all the staff that are in those classrooms, and the presentations that I've done there on air quality for you guys, and brought in a third-party industrial hygienist to test the air. A lot of the teachers just really, you know, very concerned about their classrooms when it comes to the ventilation and the woodwork. So this is just showing severe decay. And when you have, like the prior slide, you see the plywood, they just put contact paper over it. But essentially what ends up happening is you can see that water bubbling up in that divider there, and the water just starts to climb up the furniture and it's kind of rotting it out. And a lot of the staff there is concerned about mold and things like that, but there isn't. It's just, they're concerned about it, right?
Right.
And every time we'd go there with Gabe or independently, they would be like, we're here looking at your ventilation. Oh, good, you know, it was, and they pile on with there's a lot going on here. That left side is the window wall, and you can see the gaps around that window wall. And with high winds and rain, the rain literally just pours right into the shelving, which is causing this water damage. We did bring in a company that specializes in this and does it extremely economically. They do things like book shelving that's either in like a plastic composite or wood. This is actually a composite, like basically a faux wood, but it's very durable and lasts a very long time for schools. This is the budget that we carry, the type of material that, you know, for the replacement of all these units. I think there's 32 of them in the C-wing, first and second floor. So it would be to reconstruct the classrooms with new shelving using this material. It's by far the most economical, for sure. There'd be a lot more money to go wood, but in the sense that there could be more rain and heavy winds, you know, you're just gonna deal with it again. This is a typical, they're called Nesbit is the brand, and these are the ones that are about 3 times their useful life, so they're well over 60 years old.
Seriously?
Yes. Yeah, the ASHRAE standard is 20 years, so you've gotten your money out of those.
They were there when I was in school.
Yeah, well, that's what one of the ladies that was in the classroom said, that she was in that classroom and all this was there when she was there.
And that was 1969.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what she said, actually, and you probably know it, 202 or 201, I think. Sean, to answer your question, this is that little actuator on the bottom right-hand side was the only thing that you did that was added to the units, part of that first phase. And when I told Bank of America about this, she kind of laughed and said, there's literally 0 value left in that thing, so pull it out, reuse it if you want. It doesn't mean that you have to throw that out, you can reuse that. All that is an electronic actuator that it gets a digital signal, opens and closes the valve, that's all that is.
I believe the issue was that we were still paying on everything.
Correct.
And that we couldn't throw out something that we were still paying on, correct?
Yeah, that's the unit that you were paying on, that little actuator. Yeah. Just so you know, that was the only part that was being touched. So you get a new actuator, or you could reuse that one, it doesn't really make a difference, but I did check with Bank of America just to make sure. And that's just another picture of the unit there. Typical unit. And this is some of the stuff that, you know, you can see some of the water damage from the book. So the right-hand side depicts that particular day. There's a little bit of rain. It wasn't too crazy, but that particular teacher has to cover up all of her books with, you know, trash bags and towels because all of the books get soaked. So a couple of them, they moved literally all the books to the center of the room so that the books don't get ruined with rain. And that's a kind of a picture of some of it right there. Left-hand side, that's the little Vesta, little catwalk transition that goes from the original to the C-wing. And so we carried a little bit of money there, just trying to button that back up and just kind of give it a little bit of a facelift on there. But if that's something that you want more investigation on, we can do it. It's just part of the thing. Refrigeration, obviously significantly outdated, original to the facility, a lot of moisture and water leaks. We do quite a bit of these because what you end up seeing is on the other side of the wall, water leaking through the back of the freezer, walk-ins, and it's creating some moisture issues, decay, and potentially, the M word that no one wants to see. So that's what ends up happening with those. In the cafeteria and the high school, there is no mechanical ventilation, so being a congregated space, that would be a fairly plausible place to spend. That's why it's on potential phase one, add ventilation to the cafeteria. We didn't, in our budgets, we didn't carry air conditioning, just ventilation with heat recovery, so an ERV. But if you wanted to add air conditioning, that would just be slightly additional cost, but just so everybody knows, when you see the pricing, that was just to add mechanical ventilation to the space. And then above, that's the library, and it's just got the really old unit ventilators throughout the space. So we did carry a number to put an ERV in there, which would be on the roof. It would be a lot more quiet than those unit ventilators, which is what we see in libraries. We always replace unit ventilators with ERVs because you won't hear them in the space at all. So makes quite a bit of sense. And there's the energy aspect of heat recovery by recovering the heat in the space, so you can preheat the air coming in. And you can also ventilate it based on CO2, which we have listed there, which is just called demand control ventilation. So the second the part per million of CO2 reaches a certain threshold, usually around 900, it turns on, rather than just having it on a schedule where maybe there's no one in the room at that time and it's still ventilating. So it won't ventilate until someone's in the space. Those are kind of standard measures to help offset the cost of the investment. And then LED replacements like you did at the middle school. We showed this one. This is another school system we actually just did. And it has the surface mount lights on the right-hand side, like you have in the library here. So those are hanging off the ceiling, and we would go to what we call a recessed troffer with LED and its own sensor built into the fixture. That's what you got at the middle school, throughout the entire middle school. So it obviously looks aesthetically a heck of a lot better, creates more depth in the space, and saves energy. So this is just this is a Dakin Rebel type system here that we would present as an option for ventilation. Just a basic diagram on how it works, if anybody wanted to spend a little more time on the mechanics aspect of it. But we also carried a budget for access control for each building, mostly just exterior doors. If you guys were going after COPS grants or anything like that, that we were not helping you with, or you had already had funding for it, by all means, pull it from this project. We have it in there as a cost, because we're often asked to identify opportunities for security, develop the bid spec, get the bids, show you the bids, and pick the contractors, just like we do for all the other stuff. But if you already have it in place, then you have it in place. But it's a life safety measure, which we identify as a priority. So, and we didn't carry a lot, just enough for the exterior doors. This is essentially the window walls I was talking about. You can see in the bottom picture, you can see a little bit of light there in that mullion that goes down, that little aluminum mullion. And you can see above, obviously it's pretty fiery there. So significant leaks. That's where a lot of that wind and rain enters that side of the building. So we did carry some money in there for building envelope to seal all that up. Because if you're going to put in new shelving and new ventilation units, you're going to want to protect your new asset. The roof, as identified by Gabe, is as portions that have been done. This is one that was still remaining, pretty good chunk of the building. So that's the T-wing, right? Put that backwards. This is C-wing, T-wing, in the middle part. We have that right.
T-wing, yeah.
Yeah, tops the TV.
And some ADA compliance, having the turning radius for wheelchair accessibility and centerline toilets and toilet seat heights and grab bars and all those things that are part of the ADA compliance standards. This is something that obviously is not crucial for operating the buildings, but it's something that it's important to a lot of people, right? So that's why you can't just leave it out of there as a consideration. But of course, things are functional. It's not like you can't get in the building or the bathroom, but it's important to identify it so it's part of your capital plan. The foundation drainage, we left this as a separate measure. We didn't include the pricing for this yet because quite frankly, we don't know what it is. There is a little bit of an investment, some engineering by a third party civil engineer. We paid for this so far. but there's another $16,000 proposal they sent to us to do a full bid spec scope for us to use for competitive bidding. To do the civil engineering to create the drainage primarily around the sea wing where there is none, create a catch basin, create essentially a French drain around that entire office area, and you can see the red lines to the right. Also create essentially a barrier system for water runoff coming from the street. As everybody knows, that school sits quite a bit below grade from the road. And so all that water just runs down towards the building. Right now, there's literally one catch basin right there to the right, that all that water on the right-hand side goes to, and it just becomes overwhelmed and it can't keep up. And that's why all that water is reaching its way into the office area and the sea wing, creating that smell. That is the culprit.
So as we're thinking about the financing aspect of it, you would put this under air quality?
Yeah, it's just that we left it as a separate project because I wasn't sure about Drummond Woodson's input on it. I know Andrea is very cautious about that kind of stuff, so I didn't want to just throw it into this project, not knowing how you'd want to make that happen financially. This might be something where it's extremely important. Obviously, it's been that way for years, and I don't know how many times you've gone over the smell issue. This is the culprit to it. This might be a separate project that would go out to the voters potentially. I don't know how you guys wanted to handle that. But we didn't want to spend another $20,000 in engineering if we had no idea if this was going to wait a year, 2 year, 3 year, or maybe never do it. So we kind of took this as a separate project. So
Where is this catch basin?
it's
It's if you know where Delta Ed, where that end is. If you're walking down the left side of the building from Adult Ed towards the little entry over there, it's in the grass right there. That's one of them. And then that drains off from there and goes underneath the building, alongside the tennis courts and out the back. That's where the water all dumps out. Yeah, so it makes this kind of loop all the way around the building and dumps out the back. It just, so much is caught in the catch basins, and then it has to all funnel into one basin, turn 90 degrees and out the other way. It's too much. It's way too much.
We discovered too that all the catch basins along the bus loop there all go back into that one catch basin.
Right. All of the loop. So everything from the hill goes into the catch basins along the bus loop, into the one off on the lawn, and then out back. And the other problem we've had in the little courtyard on the left side of the cafeteria, that basin is lower than the other one. So once it does get overwhelmed, it pushes the water back and floods to T-wing. So that's what we had,
Which
floods
we've
inside
experienced.
building, which we've experienced a couple times.
Last year, we
in the past.
had it
Yeah,
happen
last
a couple
year.
times.
Yeah.
so Becky too, you see the far right, which is the sea wing?
Yep.
That little white block that has letters on it.
Yes,
Just to the left of that white block is where the
Oh,
catch basin
okay.
is. That's exactly where it's.
that's crazy.
And then that little catwalk, so to speak, between the sea wing and the building.
Yep.
The drains go under that, right back to the tennis courts. That's where it's supposed to drain. But it's just becoming overwhelmed and.
Yeah, so we did test pits alongside the building. That's the picture on the left, and found there is no drainage around the perimeter of the building at all. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
You find standing water in that ditch?
Yeah.
There's standing water at the footer level of the building.
And if some remember, we also did the moisture content testing in the slab around that perimeter. And that each one of these little arrows here with the block is where we tested it. Literally drilled into the concrete and put a sensor down there to see if we can see moisture in the slab. Not to penetrate all the way through the slab, obviously, that would create further issues. But to get down further enough to see, okay, is the water actually getting into the slab, which obviously the test showed that it was fairly saturated, it was 95% relative humidity. So obviously there's water in the slab. And it's no surprise when you look at when you literally stand at that catch basin, you look at the roads here and the high schools here. It's not a huge shocker that there's moisture or water getting in there. And this is the report that we had done for all the sampling and the testing. That was all sent to you guys, done by a third party. Into the middle school, most of the things on this project, this phase one, as we called it, was high school related, but there are several things that are original, like these air handlers at the middle school. three units here, serving the gym, art room and maintenance shop, all from seventies, so quite beyond their useful life, not recovering any air, not being controlled efficiently. So things like this where there is ventilation that's just really old, there is a way that there's gonna be energy savings associated with this. Obviously, in portions of like the cafeteria of the high school, you're gonna be introducing energy because there isn't ventilation there, but necessary. And there is a mix. You did do about 19 unit ventilators about 9-10 years ago into that original project, which is where those actuators were located. You wouldn't touch those, obviously, but there's still about 24 or more. 24 older ones that are still
might be.
about 50 years old.
Yeah.
So you did do some of these in the middle school under that project 10 years ago, or 9 years ago. But there's still a bunch that are 1977. And refrigeration equipment, once again, just again, beyond its useful life and showing severe decay and structural issues and, so on and so forth. Again, from the 70s. So when something's 50 years old, I mean, it's just. Doors is a big one, this is decay of doors. These doors do last a long time. They're expensive for a reason, but everything has a useful life. So doors is something that we considered as part of the building envelope modernization. And Helen Thompson, once again, another cooling tower, crucial aspect of the air conditioning in the building. That goes down, your air conditioning goes down. And Kim, which one you've already replaced some pretty serious components to it.
Yeah, both of them, we've replaced the spray pump motors. This unit here at Helen Thompson, before I started here, the whole coil pack had to be replaced. So both of them, we've done a multitude of different things over the years, but the one at the high school is by far in worse condition. But they were both similar vintage.
So you could potentially move this into a future phase 2 or phase 3, but it's there.
But you are right, if that is not working, there is no air conditioning in that.
And actually, I went out to do the audit that day, the tower was down, the fan had tripped.
Yeah, could be.
We noticed that.
Yep.
In sections and loop temp was pretty high, so.
Just visible deterioration in the doors, gaps, door sweeps and everything, just, lots of drafts. If you're gonna be doing a project like this, the number one thing that anyone tells you in this business is keep the good air in and the bad air out. So doors is a good way to do it. It's also life safety and security, right? But this is a situation where if you're doing access control, whether it was part of our project or separate, we would want to work in accordance with you to make sure that the right strikes are being put in for the locking mechanism so that you're not cutting into a brand new door when you're putting on electronic security to protect the occupants.
Sorry, what were those temp readings? It was 103 and 92.8.
Yeah, we did that over the summer, so it was really hot out, so the sun was radiating on the door.
The door is 103 and the ambient temp is 92, or yeah.
Better to do it obviously right now, but this is review. Once again, some more weatherization doors, the first easiest place to start. And this is, again, not something that needs to be done right away because there is a primary boiler, but this is your backup and it's a cast iron sectional boiler. And you've got a few of these. In fact, high school, you have a fire tube boiler, which you don't see too many of those anymore, but that's your backup as well. So most of these are your backups. You've done a nice job of your lead boiler being converted to gas, being efficient boilers. But in the event that goes down, this is your backup. And cast iron sectional boilers are fairly volatile right now. Anyone can get away from them, they are, but it's not crucial for this phase. This could be a phase 2, no problem. Again, weatherization, windows, doors. Fire alarm, just because it's life safety, is a big deal there. A lot of these components are original to the building, and as Gabe identified, there's operational issues and technical issues with those, so it just became part of the, let's maybe focus on that as part of phase 1.
Excuse me.
You wanna talk about this boiler room, the heating plant here?
Yeah, so there's two boiler rooms at the Pittston School. One of them was completely redone back about 9 years ago, and that one's in really good shape. The second boiler room here, as you can see, this boiler sits down in the back half. There's a sewer pit down there with a sewer ejector pump set and everything. That boiler was replaced, I think, in 2015 or installed. But it's in really rough shape. It's not in a good environment at all. If you look inside the control cabinet right there, it's all starting to rot out. A lot of the components are in pretty bad shape. The fan motor's got a lot of drag on it. It's pretty close to being retired. The thought with this room is, if you, yeah. Or can you go back to that original slide? One more, yeah. So the thought would be into this room is to build a floor out over that. Pit right there. To get rid of that, that's another cast iron boiler. That one was converted at the time, 2015. So it's got a newer burner, but the boiler itself is about 30 years old. So the thought would be to build the floor out over that pit, get rid of these two boilers and put a racked boiler system in there with two new boilers. The other issue in that room too is the pumps are situated up over this floor, which makes them very hard to service and kind of unsafe. You kind of see up in the back corner there where the pumps are that are hanging out over that pit. So that makes it really hard to just even do regular maintenance on them.
And this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is partially of the backup of the sewer and drainage, right?
Yes.
So that might not be good stuff down there. And you've got people working on that boiler. It's a life safety thing. You know.
which we've talked about. I don't know why it was not done when they did the boiler swap out in 2015, but that's.
More than likely that all that dirt is not just dirt, if you know what I mean. There's some pretty nasty stuff down there. So if you've got people and your own people responding to that boiler with down a ladder surrounded by that, that's why Adam had mentioned building a floor to the left where that brown ladder is, building a floor over that and get that boiler out of that pit. It's just, from a life safety standpoint, it would be a priority one on our list. And Gabe's as well. And this is your heat and ventilation. There is no ventilation here for the gym at Piston Randolph. That's it's original. Basically, it's a fan coil. That's basically hot water being pushed to that coil in that fan. And it's like a vector fan that's super loud and it pumps the air down into space. But it's obviously not efficient, really loud. Should be an ERV in there recovering the heat, providing fresh air and adequate heat. So. And the roofing was something that was on that list originally. More weatherization, infiltration issues.
Dave, I thought we repaired the roof at Piston Randolph
The
a couple years ago. I mean,
the flat membrane.
just the flat.
Yeah, so the main portion of the building has been redone, but the K1 wing and the gym, those two roof sections haven't. Yep. Which it's older, but we haven't done it yet.
So as I mentioned, we have this tool that we build and it's hard to see. So we printed it out for you. And this is, we call it the project builder. And this has been a huge success for schools to build a capital plan. And so what you've got here, again, these are budget numbers based on the fact that we've done all these projects many times. So we have a pretty good grasp on per square foot cost for like the roofs and air handlers, ERVs, no matter what it is, we've done it in terms of installation and we've gotten the bids on it. These are not competitively bid numbers. So once you guys choose a project that makes sense, whenever you want to do it, our next steps for us is to finish the engineering enough where we can get qualified contractors to walk through, provide their bids based on a scope of work and drawings. So everybody's bidding on the same sheet of music. We'll review the bids with you, show you the bids, obviously. And how EMC makes their money is we put 10% on it as our profit and markup. And you see all those numbers. There's nothing that you don't see in terms of where your money is going. So just want that to be crystal clear. There is zero ambiguity in what you're paying for. These are just purely budget numbers. So when you see the high school 1.195 for the C wing ventilation, that includes the cabinets, the new ventilation units and controls associated with it, right? We're still gonna go out, if this is something you said, okay, this phase one project, let's choose 5 of these things. We'll finish the engineering and get the bids for you guys, right? So that would be the next steps. But that being said, as you know, we had 130 something measures that I showed on the screen last time for all the schools. And that's everything from, you know, sprinkler improvements, fire alarm improvements, roofs, boilers, controls, a lot of things that wouldn't be under this phase. So we had a really hard time narrowing down what you'd pick over something else. And these 17 items for this phase one, we just left for you guys to say, okay, because that's $4.5 million, right? And what you try to figure out is how does this impact us from a financial standpoint if we finance this? So when you go to your option builder, which is what we've got in front of you, this is an easy way for you guys to see how things lay out over the next several years. But what's also nice in this tool, when we get to that point, is all those options you have in front of you. You could say, okay, in the first project, never mind the future projects, but let's analyze 2 different scenarios for a project next to each other. And you can do that in this tool very easily. All we have to do is go back to the project builder, select the things that you like, and then assign it here, and it becomes option 1, right? And then you just see what the financial impact is, which is $4.5 million project, $80,000 in rebates, $131,000 a year in savings. $80,000 down payment is from Efficiency Main. That's the Efficiency Main money that we would garner from the lighting project mainly. And your annual contribution to doing a $4.5 million project is $246,000 based on 17 years and an interest rate of 4.8%. And then principal and interest payment is below it. So this just kind of helps you see what the financial impact is every year to do these improvements, assuming you finance it in this manner. And it really wouldn't be any different if you used a bond or this. It's just, this is a heck of a lot easier to get across the bow. I can tell you that. Hopefully that makes sense. So if we go back through this and say, okay, you know, we want to take out the roof. So I could just go over here and simply take out the roof, which is $819,000. And I go back to our option builder and I assign it because that's what it's currently at. Drops the project to 3.7 million and, you know, your contribution should go down accordingly. Oh, that didn't link up, but it will. So we would just go back and forth with this project, this tool, and show you the financial impact of the payment structure. A generalized interest rate. I just bid out 3 school projects for this summer and interest rates came in at around 4.8 to 4.95%. So I know that rate's right there. Most of the banks that we spoke with, TD, Bank of America, Municipal Leasing Consultants, and one other bid on these school projects, and they were all pretty close to that rate. Hoping that rates go down, I put 4.1% for the future phases. You know, and so you'll see like in 2026, that's a phase 2. We have the cooling tower for the other school. We have the middle school ventilation equipment. You know, it was a really hard thing to go back and forth between what's important now and what can be a phase 2, phase 3, 5 years out. But that's kind of what we came up with.
Tom, the rebates.
Mhm.
What Efficiency Main will cover rebates for what specifically? Where would they either?
That was for the lighting,
Just the lighting.
primarily lighting. Yep, and they've told us again, as they tell everyone, that the lighting rebates they're slated to go away completely because incandescents are already you can't buy them anymore. So Efficiency Main's programs are an incentive-based program, not a grant program. So they're trying to incentivize folks to do heat pumps, you know, VRF, things like that. Lighting, if you're mandated to do it, there's no sense to give you an incentive, but they are holding on to it again. you captured a pretty good amount for the middle school. But, that was already way low from what it was. It was like 138,000, I think. So they did cut the program a little bit, so we readjusted the incentives, because we do all that work for you guys, if you decide to go forward with that. The other thing that we didn't take any umbrage for would be things like VRF, where Efficiency Maine is providing a pretty healthy incentive for that. It just seemed as though it might be a little premature to put in VRF with heat pumps when you have portions of the building that has no ventilation or they're 65 years old. You know, VRF is very expensive. We're doing it in Kittery School right now, and yeah, we got half of one of their schools covered by Efficiency Maine. But that was a pretty big number. And so when you look at all the other things, it just took precedent, you know,
What's VRF? What's the acronym?
variable refrigerant flow.
Okay.
It's a heat pump. But there's different types, so essentially you can literally simultaneously heat and cool off the same condensing unit with one type. You can provide heat recovery, you can do all kinds of different things with those different levels. Anything you can add to that?
And you can do many heads off one system, you can do 40 systems.
Well, so you have one unit, but you can have other zones.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
That unit can supply either refrigerant, either hot or cold, depending on the need, right?
Correct. You could literally have the same outdoor condensing unit serving two parallel classrooms. And one can be at one temperature heating and one can be in cooling if you go that direction. You know, you can,
All right, so they're capable of that.
technology has gone crazy and it continues to. It's wild. Yeah. But we didn't, again, so there's significant incentives associated with that, up to, if you get heat recovery at your primary source, is $18 a square foot now, right? They just increased it again, Efficiency Maine. So that would be something that we would consider in a future phase, but again, how do you put in air conditioning in portions of the building when you have other portions that are like we showed the pictures of? So it didn't seem like it made sense, because it is expensive. But if there's a push, again, this is your show. Our job is to show you the numbers, the analytics, and then what you have, whatever you like, we'll get you the bids and we'll run the construction project for you. But, you know, it didn't make sense to us.
So if that was a choice,
Oh,
there would be a cost associated. Obviously, it's gonna cost more for those units, even with potential rebates.
Yeah, we did almost a 60,000 square foot school, all heat pumps, majority of it. Obviously vestibules and some common areas that are choke points you can't do because it's illegal from a refrigeration standpoint. But say 95% of that building was done. It's about $1.5 million to do it, and about $800,000 in Efficiency Maine money. So a pretty good chunk.
Yeah.
And we're in construction of that now. Has to be a primary source of heating.
Right, so it can be a secondary instead
Right.
of primary.
And the control system has to be set up that way. But that particular school, they had just done a new boiler room, so they had full redundant boilers. They had mechanical ventilation in the entire building. They just wanted air conditioning. They wanted an efficient means of doing it. So, and we got 4 contractors to bid on that. That was the low bid. So that was a pretty good qualified project. Just as an example of the cost. You know, with all these other things, you know, I don't know.
If the board wanted to move forward, what is the timeline in which you could go out to bid and be prepared to do the construction as you identify?
We would want to have the bids in by March, the latest. Right now, we've got some pretty big school projects that all the bids we're compiling them already for some summer projects. Just because the good contractors are already getting their summers lined up, and you don't want the JV team to do new ventilation, you know? So it would be a matter of us, if this were to vote forward, whatever you guys choose to do, we would jump on it literally immediately. Get the engineering done, get the drawings done. We wouldn't do full drawings, just to speed things up. We would do what we call either a 1-line or a 30% drawing, enough so it's enough data with a written scope that's very detailed. With equipment selections, all those things, make sure everyone's on the same page. But you don't have to do a full set of drawings to save time, get enough so we get bids, and then you'll finalize everything once you get all the numbers in. Some portions of this that we didn't even discuss, which is A big thing that we do in every project is making sure that you guys aren't stuck with any proprietary controls, whether it was for building automation, boilers, lighting. We create a separate bid spec for the controls to make sure that moving forward, you're not stuck with any one company. You start to have failures, you have the autonomy to go with a different service company, right? If you lose a controller, someone says it's $18,000, is it? Well, now we have the ability to get competitive bids. You know, in most cases, in most schools, with whatever company they're with, they feel stuck, and that's just not a good feeling to have. So as part of this, we would think that that would be something to consider too, but we didn't spend too much time doing that under this first phase, because most of it's mechanical. It's literally life safety stuff, ventilation related. But that would be something that is part of one of the future phases. And then your service contracts associated with that, maybe that goes down, you know? Right now, you get a service number, you're kind of stuck with that service number. There's only certain folks that can work on certain pieces of equipment. In the future, you generate a bid spec where you could get competitive bids for service every 3 years. You know, and cut that down. That could be serious savings there.
I'm just running some numbers. One of the things that Gabe will be doing is walking us through the capital improvement plan, the things that he's identified. And I was just running numbers. And if we look at the amount of money he is right now proposing, that the board budget for roof replacements at the high school that needs to be completed, the boiler at Pittston Randolph, some doors that are in rough shape that need to be purchased. If you combine all of that for next year, that is $470,000 for next year in capital improvement. So if you were to move forward, 470,000 could come out of the regular budget as you're currently
We already looked
proposing.
at some of these items.
So,
One other thing is, with the tax exempt lease purchase, one of the biggest bonuses of it, which you've already experienced, is that you do get a year without your payments. And that's designed for the municipal entities, federal entities, tax exempt. So your first payment wouldn't be until, you know, say you said, okay, execute this now, it would be February of 2026 would be your first payment. So, and that's designed to garner the energy savings necessary to put towards your payment, whether in whole or partial, right? So. Yeah.
We done.
I think so, yeah.
I'll pull our board out.
I mean, it shows the need. I mean, we are in need.
well, and many of the items that you've included in this summary, they were included the last time we had this analysis done, and the board decided to go with the boiler replacements. We upgraded, that we did some lighting upgrades. But the board at that time, for many legitimate reasons, didn't take it to the next phase, the next level.
And all those things that you did in that last phase were, I mean, you would still do it again today if you did it all over again. You didn't do all the boilers, you did a lead boiler. And you did it with an efficient boiler, left the backup. So everything you did was money well spent, because you converted to gas. It was a big energy savings project. It's just a lot of the big capital measures were left off because they're big capital measures. I mean, quite frankly, you know.
Was that what was being referred to in 2015? Okay.
Yeah, and the hard piece, we're not just talking one school. You know, we have all of our schools that they all need something. They're all getting older every year.
So like I said, it's entirely whatever scope you guys come up with. You just let us know and we can move. I think the thing to do is like the thing that we're a little unsure of is the things like the security measures that we carried. That might be something that we take out of there and separate. That would bring that cost down drastically. If that, because I think there's about $600,000 in access control, electronic life safety that we had in there for all the schools, which is primarily considering just the external doors, controlling foot traffic, people getting in and out.
But I would identify one of the priorities is dealing with the moisture issue in front.
Absolutely.
That is one of the most frequent and significant complaints that we receive from the staff over at the high school. When you walk in there, it smells, it is musty, it just stinks. Not the entire year. There are certain times of the year in the spring and in the fall, of course, when it's wet, that's when you can really smell it. And so if we want to make sure that our staff are working in an environmentally sound environment, that has to be one of your priorities.
So one, and we give you those bills directly, as you've seen with the air quality stuff, we don't mark any of that stuff up. Yeah, we're the one orchestrating it and compiling the data, but you can pay those contractors directly like you've done for the air quality testing. Same with the civil engineer, there's no sense for us to mark that stuff up, it's just gluttonous. So it's about $16,000 is the bill proposal he gave us for civil engineering to do that, yeah. So that would be something that if you really want to make that a priority in the very near future, we want to execute that work with that civil engineer. It's a very small shop, he's literally a one-man band, but came highly recommended and knew immediately what to do and what scope to put together. And then you can go back out to like McGee and other local contractors when you have a scope, drawings, and then get the accurate numbers.
And in 2015, when you hired another company to do this work, they attempted to rectify this issue. Spent a lot of time. We put in some heat pumps as a way of drying out those spaces. So this is not the first time that the board has attempted to address this air barrier or water barrier, whatever you want to call it, vapor barrier, that's the word. That this is not the first time that they've tried to address the vapor barrier issue and the smell in the office section of the building.
Right.
Is the smell inside the building or outside?
Inside.
Generally an
It's
outside.
Inside.
It's really pungent. You can definitely smell it. The good news is the air quality was not bad. In fact, the outdoor air was worse than the indoor air, which is what you want to see, right? But it doesn't mean that it makes people feel good.
It's not.
Well, it gives
deadly, but
headaches,
it's uncomfortable.
right? You can get
Oh,
headaches
yeah.
when you're in that environment.
And when we did that presentation to all the staff and they were pretty resounding assembly there. I think there was like 70 staff members.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, I thought there was gonna be like 4 people. And I'm not an indoor air quality expert with this stuff, you know, all the different mold spores. Luckily, I did have the gentleman with me. He was a little shy too, because when we got there, it was like 70 teachers in there. You know, I was like, oh, this is gonna go really bad, or, you know, but only a few were like, you know, although we all do appreciate the fact that that the administration did the testing and makes us feel better. I still get headaches and I still think, but that's not uncommon, as the hygienist had said. Some people react to mold spores, whether they're toxic or not, just differently.
Right.
He, in fact, actually gets a scratchy, closed-in throat with mold spores that are not considered unhealthy. He just reacts to it differently. So some people just may actually be getting headaches. It's not false information. They probably just react differently. And those happen to be the folks that were in the wings that get the water. So I think that really is your solution, but we would need to know if you want to move forward with the engineering to get that done so we can get because right now we don't know what that's going to cost. We didn't feel comfortable shooting from the hip on something like that because once we get in there and the civil engineer gets in there, that scope could be drastically different. So I didn't want to throw a number at you guys. That's $800,000, whether or not it came from McGee or anyone reputable. It just didn't make sense until we knew exactly what your scope was. That's why I figured that would be a separate project.
Sure.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
I think that should remain separate.
Yeah, because it's not really energy related. It's health safety.
And it's health and safety and it's perception.
Right.
You know, even if it's not dangerous mold, if you perceive it is, and it is dangerous for some people, but not everybody.
People can be allergic and it's not dangerous. to
Yeah.
them,
Absolutely.
But it's a constant allergic reaction.
It's a constant, yeah.
Yeah, and every year it just continues to come back, and that was the feedback we got from the staff there. It's like, okay, well, it just continues to come back, and they know that you've tried things. You've got the heat pumps in those rooms, which provide air conditioning too, which is nice. but they know you guys you've made attempts.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to solve, you know?
So we just need some direction from the finance committee on how to proceed, if to proceed.
How are we looking on the budget? Like how are we looking to afford this?
We
or-
don't know yet. We won't know until we see a draft of the budget, the staff, they have the teachers, that portion of the staff, they have submitted their proposals to the administration. The administration has to have their information to this office by the end of the month. We're still waiting for subsidy numbers to be provided to us from the state. The deadline for that is February 1st. So I just have no information at this point to share.
I mean, I'm just hesitant because it's like, you know, I know we're tight and I know we've raised taxes a lot to try to cover for certain things. And it's like, I get that this stuff has to get done. But, you know, it's like, how do we even ballpark this when we have no idea?
Well, I
Well,
think they're,
you know what this cost, depending on what you choose, Sean, you know what that cost is. Our goal would be to obviously, once we get the bids in, to bring it in slightly below what it is, but we're pretty sure on those numbers. So you do know what those costs are. The water infiltration job, we don't know yet until we spend the money on the civil engineer.
No, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of asking them. Because like, I get that these prices are pretty well set, I understand that piece. What I'm getting at is the piece of like, how do we actually afford this? How do we sell this to the taxpayer? How do we actually go about, you know, trying to get this done in a reasonable manner? Cause like, again, I understand this has to get done. I understand these are things that have to get improved upon. But, you know, like with the rubber meeting the road on this.
Last year was my first year in this process and it's starting from scratch every year. And once we get the proposals from the state, it's literally coming to these meetings and looking at the numbers that are given to us because it's starting from scratch every year, from the administrators, from the teachers, from the state, everything. And it's us just putting that number together.
So we're just shooting in the dark here.
right now.
Yeah.
At this moment.
I-
At this
I-
moment.
I-
in the dark.
That's been my experience.
However,
Yeah.
you know, as I indicated, that based on the proposal that Gabe has put together, we already know that there should be $470,000 built into the budget for roof repairs, for door replacements, and for a boiler at Pittston Randolph. Those items alone are $470.
That was my train of thought, is that pick a number and then pick your projects.
Well, and I mean, that is one nice thing, you know, with EMC's software, you can pick and choose. We can pick the things, so we can go in and pick exactly the items that they've identified as phase one and look at the ones that I have in here, and we can pick and choose
I mean,
and see where we're at.
as far as I'm concerned, you're the primary source of information about what's needed.
Yeah.
You know, priority, but, I mean, sealing windows and doors is the cheapest and easiest parts of anything about at all.
Yeah, and three of the schools, we've done all new windows at 3 of the buildings. We've been piecing together, trying to get some new doors in there, but yeah. We've kind of taken the approach over the years, you know, each school we try to do something in. And trying to get all new doors at all the schools, the number is just so high, so we throw in 30,000 here and 20,000 there. Well, 30,000, it gets you maybe 3 doors replaced. It doesn't get you what it used to get you. When you're looking at commercial steel doors and all of I mean, just a door handle's $2,000. So when you look at that, the pricing of those items, you don't get what you used to. When you're looking at 6 schools and trying to, you know, get
My
6
opinion
schools.
is, I mean, if you got a roof that's leaking, that's a real priority.
Yeah, and that's what we've always had roofs as a top priority. I mean, right now, we're looking just on my list, there's 3 roof sections at the high school.
I mean,
Section at the middle school.
As far as efficiency goes, whether it's heating efficiency or cooling efficiency.
Yep.
If you've got a leaky building.
Yep.
You're wasting your time. So new boilers won't help if you're leaking air.
Mhm.
So, I mean, my priority, personally, I would seal everything up. I think that's where I'd spend the money to start. My opinion. The roof, if you've got water coming down through a building, you got damage, you need to stop it. So that has to, those would be the priorities. I'd start with those two. Then, you know, you were mentioning at the high school, the air handler unit on the roof. That's gotta change, right? I mean, we gotta have that, and Pittston, the boiler systems, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we just have to select these A, B, C, D. But then you have to have, like you mentioned, a budgeted amount of money available. For how many years? I mean, that 470,000, are we gonna look at that, budgeting that forward for the next 17 years? And keep adding new projects each year? I mean, the well is just so deep, you can't.
Well, and I raised the 470 because if you were to move forward with this entire project as they outlined, their estimate is 390, right, 391.
Yeah.
So for year one, it would cover that cost. We could pull out the 470 and you would have 390 instead. However, what it doesn't take into consideration is some other things that might break down the future, right?
Mhm.
Break in the future that is not a part of this project,
Mhm.
right? And you need to
Yeah,
fix,
yeah.
right? So, and that's an unknown, and that may be, you know, the items that they included for year two, year three. So how do you handle that? And are you prepared, if you move forward with this project, are you prepared to add more money to the budget for that breakage should it occur in the future?
And if we're talking about not being approved for a new building for perhaps 10 years. And the building, I was in a meeting with the commissioner on Saturday, and the construction area of the DOE is pretty overwhelmed right now, because most of the schools in the state of Maine are 60 years old and older. So we're not in a unique position. We're in the same position and the same competition as many other places. So in the meantime, it is our responsibility to the taxpayers to take care of the facilities that we have. And I think partly what keeps us off the list is we take such good care of our buildings over time. We are such good stewards of our buildings that it's taken us a long time to get to the place where we are with the high school at this moment. I would think a very important thing, my opinion, is to fix the water that's coming around the building and out the first portion, to take, and that was what, 16,000, is that what you said?
That's the engineering.
It's just the
Just the engineering portion
We
to
don't know
get
the
that done.
cost to have it repaired,
So
right?
it seems to me, my opinion would be to see what that is, because if the concrete is damp underneath and water's coming up through, that's an important, that's what's causing the smell, that's what's making people not feel well, that's
If you guys
something.
want, I mean, we can obviously pave that engineer and then you'll identify that cost. We'll show you the invoice, we'll pay it. If it's not currently in the budget, because I know you're in the midst of that, we can cover that cost and then carry it forward.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, it's your call. I mean, we'll just give you the proposal.
That type of issue, I mean, I worked in the industry I worked on these systems. So, I mean, if you got standing water, you put in a sump pump and you pump it out. You never let standing water accumulate. If you got water in this cistern that we were shown, you dig it out deeper, you put a pump in it that constantly pumps any water that accumulates. So you keep your groundwater gone. That might be a very cheap fix, actually. A solution to, I mean, because putting a French drain in around that building is going to be a hugely expensive project. And so, and that's, if you got a building that has an uncomfortable odor, but it's not hurting anyone except they don't like it, well, my priorities don't shift to that, they shift to the heating and cooling efficiencies, the doors that need replacing, the windows that need, those heating and cooling units that are in the classroom in C building. I sat on them when I was in high school. Those things are ancient. They need to be upgraded.
They do.
That's where I would be focusing my money. I would look for a really cheap fix to get rid of groundwater, and I know it can be done. It might help, it might not. It might alleviate the problem though, if you simply pump it dry all the time. Don't let groundwater ever collect,
The engineer did say that, Jeff, too, that you guys could start with scope A without going crazy. And doing the bunkers at the top of the hill, diverting water. You start with just a simple thing like the French drain and another catch basin. To diversify some of the water, which is a lot less money, without going all in. And then if that works, then you've spent just enough to fix it, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, then that goes to Plan B, which would be adding another whatever that is,
Yeah, we talked about trying to divert the water that's coming off the actual road itself.
Yeah.
Before it even gets to the lower portion of the school, like the bus loop, to divert that away from the school across each side. So it would mean some, which I'm sure nobody would complain about, some speed bumps at the top of the bus loops.
Probably not.
To slow the kids entering and exiting, but that would divert, potentially divert the water that's coming off the road, that's coming from the other side of the road, even away from the school and around the building each way. And in hopes not to overwhelm any of the catch basins, divert the groundwater away, to hope as what we had talked about that day is like plan A, or look at a two step, it'd be a lot less expensive.
This angle, the speed bumps, so when the water hits it, it runs to the right, there's a little catch basin to the right of the C wing where that water would go. So there's a couple different options that he explored.
Is it possible to find the 16,000 in this year's?
That's an Andrea question.
Yeah. Or
It's something we can look at for sure.
And I know anything can go wrong. We had it happen last year when that thing happened in front of the middle school that we were
Right.
not anticipating.
Right.
We've
Right,
had
exactly.
some unanticipated expenses
Correct.
already, so
Yeah, for sure.
But they are things that we have to do in order to take care of our buildings. And health and safety is first, of course, air and.
Was there an update on the application that we submitted? Did you say there was no decision for possibly 10 years? Or would they decide and there may not be construction?
they will,
for 10 years?
we will know probably June-ish how we rated compared to other schools across the state. If we are selected for funding, it could be up to 10 years before you actually get a new building, or 12 years.
And one of the things that they're talking about at the DOE is, according to the commissioner, is just the length of time it takes to get through this process, and that it's not reasonable for districts to go this long with aging buildings, and just their process is not so great.
What's our next step here as a finance committee to make these decisions? I mean, because we're not gonna have you guys with us all the time, we're talking about it, this is just for now. You have that interactive program, but we won't have that available.
I can get you all the information that you've got there in front of you. And then just let me know what you think might make sense.
Phone calls, texts, and we can get you to answer questions.
Yeah, whatever information you guys need.
Because I think we're gonna have to sit together for more than one session and talk about each individual item and pick them. Like I said, have a number. The 470 you said is already built into the projected.
No, the 470 is it built into Gabe's proposed capital improvement plan.
Okay.
If you pick the items that they have already mentioned as a phase one, if you pick those, 3-4 items out, and you add those together, they come to roughly $470,000.
So in our budget, school budget, propose that this, we're gonna be talking about, I know it's always zero-based, stuff, but what is our capital improvement number that we normally have? We have a number in our mind already that we're gonna propose.
Well-
It could fluctuate yearly. I mean, right now, just looking at mine, so if we did everything that was in my capital improvement plan that I have kind of pinpointed and specified that I would like to see for next year, that's $888,000 in change.
What did we do last year?
Roughly 250. Yeah. Because we
a lot
cut.
out of it.
So each year, I mean, it started out at, I believe, 4 something, but there was a lot cut out. And that's how it's been the past 5, 6 years. It's been cut.
We can take off so you guys can talk. So the only thing I wanna leave you with, Jeff, is to your point, whatever you find that you don't think is valuable in phase one, you can just exit out and I'll change it and submit it back to you and create some. This is the other district I was talking about, we did this back and forth 5 or 6 times. And then figured out what made sense financially for them. So just let me know, whatever you guys like and don't like, or anything, and then we can adjust it accordingly.
I think it's important to recover any benefits we can get, rebates.
Yeah.
Those are important.
We've been good at that.
I think the rebates and then the savings, and I appreciate that you've included those on there because those efficiencies are gonna, like sealing up the windows and doors are gonna be,
Right.
have a lot of bang for a buck, and I guess that's where I'd wanna look.
Well, the lighting rebates,
And the lighting maybe too, yeah,
it's a big hit.
yeah.
Is the 17-year term, is that an average term or was that something?
Yeah, and that's the term that the board chose last.
Okay.
time.
It's a pretty average term that banks see the value of all this stuff drop drastically after 20 years. So because, as we talked about, some of this equipment is under your first project, they still technically own. They look at the value of that. So when I talked to Holly, I told her it was just those little actuators. She just said there's nothing left in those in terms of value, so I could care less. If it were a boiler or a big piece of refrigeration equipment or something that still had value in it, then that's a different story. But 17 years is the sweet spot for the best interest rate too. It's a reverse yield curve now where it used to be 10 years, you get the better interest rates. Now it's 15 or 17 years. They want slightly longer debt, provides more value to them because it is a lease. But after 18 years, that drops off.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it and on the committee, but also that you went to the teachers with it and like let them know what was going on and
Right.
I don't know, gave them information. I'm glad you had to face them down a little bit.
Sometimes it's easier to have a third party just kind of face the music and it was, at the end of the day, it's good news. I mean, the facts are the facts. You had an industrial hygienist, third party that does this, sent it out to a laboratory and verified that the outside air is in fact worse than the inside air, which means you do have some ventilation in that.
Right,
Right.
something's working.
Yeah, something's working, correct. So. It didn't make all of the problems go away. People still had concerns because, again, people do react to it differently.
They do.
But there was only a few that.
Yeah, and we have gone back and done some additional testing of some areas that they did pinpoint after that meeting. There was a survey that was sent out and some staff that responded to the survey pinpointed some concerns, so we went back and did some additional testing. We just haven't received the sample results back yet.
Another interesting thing that the commissioner spoke about was that not many schools in the state do air quality control. And I'm very appreciative that we do.
Right.
Because that's an important thing for our staff.
Lauren, she's the principal there, right?
Lauren,
Lauren had asked when we were done with that presentation that day on the air testing, if we minded if she sent out the ability to have all the staff respond with their concerns and then re-engage another test. Because we did say that was circumstantial on that day. Any test can change on a given day.
Right.
You get heavy moisture one day, it's gonna change the test results. So absolutely, she sent out the ability to do that with all the staff. I think only 5 or 6 responded with, I would like to have my area retested, because I think that, that's a good indication of it. Is it safe?
Right.
So I had called John, he got with you guys, he's the hygienist that did it directly with you guys to test those follow-up areas. So you literally have done everything you can as an administration to make sure that you're staying on top of it.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for coming back, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Oh, thanks.
Great to see you.
You too. Thanks, Darius.
So again, the follow-up question, we heard Jeff ask, do you schedule a time where you really sit down, you bring your book, right? You guys all have this document. You bring this, you really look at it, you highlight it, and you debate what you want to move forward with versus doing it tonight. Have people look at this, read, and come back with an opinion and an idea. I heard Tom say, however, if the board wants to move forward, you need to make some decisions in the near
Kind of quickly.
future, otherwise you will not be able to get the work done this summer.
Agreed. I heard that too.
Yeah, I mean, summer is a very short window.
Right,
And he said they've already got,
yes,
people are already
They
throwing up
they
their
are, I
summer.
mean,
Yes,
that's,
they are.
that's, it's the same with the roof projects. The ones that are slated for next year, we've already signed some agreements just saying that we have interest in doing these projects next summer. Should it pass budget approval, and if it doesn't, they realize that we wouldn't be doing them. But just, that's the only way we can get on
right.
a schedule to keep us in a summer time slot. That's the only way we can do it.
Right,
Right
so
now,
when,
we have to,
know.
yeah.
so do you want to schedule a special meeting for this?
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so when? I have next Tuesday night. Does a week give you enough time? The 21st?
Can I get a printed copy of that? You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah,
Like if I
you
just-
should, you do have an electronic copy, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
but
do. It's
Yeah.
just, hard for me to
yeah,
scroll.
we can make one, but you would need to
I can
stop in
come
and pick
here.
it up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we can do that.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd like to have that also.
Printed copy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'll stop and get it.
Anyone else want a printed copy? Do you want a printed copy?
Oh, yeah.
Our non-committee members want to.
Yeah, the 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyone else? Do you want a printed copy?
Sure.
5.
I don't want a printed copy. I don't think I have a digital copy.
Okay.
Right, you're not on finance.
I'm not on
or-
the committee, yeah.
Yeah.
We can definitely.
Okay, but we'll make some copies. So what about next Tuesday?
I cannot, I have a Gardner Main Street.
Oh, right. Not available Wednesday night. I also need to schedule a policy committee meeting. And I'm going to have to leave the state again. I don't know exactly when, but that may be something that Andrea will need to fill in when she's feeling better. I can do next Thursday.
23rd.
Yeah, I can do Thursday of this week.
I can't do this week, but I could do the 23rd.
How about others? 23rd?
Next Thursday,
Next
I can
Thursday?
do that.
Can we do 5 o'clock?
Sure.
5?
5? I can do earlier if anyone else can do earlier.
Yeah, I can too. I mean, I can do any time, so
Okay.
that would be,
Can we do 4, 4:30? I don't know what,
Five would be ideal.
5, okay, all right. So,
If you think a large part of the conversation will be completed then, because I can't make that meeting, you don't necessarily have to print a copy for me if it wouldn't be useful in future meetings. But if there might be more conversation, I would welcome.
There probably will be.
I mean,
more
there's a
conversation.
lot of stuff in there.
Whatever's decided.
I'm saying that
I'm pretty
if
sure
it were
it's a
strictly kind of information
projects.
for that, I can't make it, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Alright.
I'll see if I can get the actual program, whatever he uses, if it is just some sort of Excel, the way it's set up, to see if, because Tom won't be here.
Proprietary.
I'm pretty sure I'll then I could just pick and choose, and we can
Yeah.
pick the items
Yeah.
right and see it live right
Yeah.
there. Yep. And actually put it up on the
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
And just run some scenarios. I think that would help out tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he would allow me to.
yeah, as long as, again, it is proprietary, so we
Yep.
want to make
Yep.
sure
Yeah, we
no
don't wanna
one gets a
cheat.
copy
Oh,
of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yep.
Um,
Yep. Yeah, it wouldn't be given out to everybody. It would
No
just
one
be
can
used
have
in
a
the
copy
meeting,
of it.
just so we can pick and choose.
and 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
If you wanna change it, just let me know, you know, but.
Okay, I heard Sean say for him, it's only 5 o'clock, he can't do before 5. Okay. So why don't we do that? I will double check and make sure that Andrea can be here, because it will be important that she be present. All right, then, if we're good with that, then Gabe, do you wanna
Yeah, I'll just quickly
kind of
skim over
very
this.
quickly go through?
Yep, yeah, because we may be going
Thank
through
you.
a lot of it. Yeah, I mean,
No, I don't.
You got it?
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Molly, for coming.
And
I'll be your problem.
thanks for being. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
okay, we'll skip the first page is just the total of everything, if you look over it. And again, it's been cut in the prior years. The first column is what we have set in there for this year. It's about $250,000 is what we have in there for capital improvements. If you look to what we'd be looking at doing next year, it's considerably more. We've pushed off so many projects where just it pushes them and pushes them each year. And so, yeah, we're up to $888,200. And that's still not including any major paving like we've spoken about over the years. I did throw in a couple of the schools, just some patchwork paving, $5,000 here and there. But there's no major paving work. There's no major renovation of the catwalk in there. So there's none of those big ticket items really. A lot of these things that are in here are needs that we need to do.
Yep.
And some of them are still just fixes. We're still just doing basic maintenance to some of the things. Starting out LER, the gym floor, we did reviews last year. It's been on the books for years to do. If anybody's been over there, it's the same deal. It's bumped up in spots, it's delaminating, it's coming apart. Really would like to take care of it next year. That's in there. Exterior doors, we had pared it down to 20,000 for this year. We were able to get 2 doors done. I put 30,000 just to get 3 doors, hoping to get the main another set of doors off the back of the gym to the playground, a couple of the other fire doors that are, and these doors are over 30 years, they're rusted through in spots. We've bondoed, we've patched, we've painted, they need to be replaced and done. So that's a main piece. Pre-K playground repairs, the playground again, it's 30 years old. This is for taking up some pavement and in the hopes of, we had a slide this year that completely broke. We cannot use it. It cannot be replaced. We can't find a replacement. Something needs to be done. Hopefully, maybe we can look at pairing with the Parent Teacher Association at that school to match funds maybe. So we can get $20,000 worth of repairs. That would be great, and get some new equipment in there. Fire panel, that was actually, I don't know if it's a phase 1, but it's in one of the phases. They looked at LER and Riverview as fire panel upgrades in their proposal. I would have to check the numbers, but it may be in a phase 1 piece.
You say fire panel, you mean fire alarm system?
Fire alarm system. These Riverview and LER have the 2 schools that have the original fire panel systems. They are out of compliance. We are basically in a situation where we are in violation because of them right now. So they will alarm if there's a fire, it works.
Well, my next question.
Just they are out of compliance because they're 32 years old. Yep.
Is there a penalty that?
No, they were just noted on our quarterly inspection, which we do over Christmas break every year. They were just noted, so the hope is, I would love to do it this year. Again, if we had the money,
Right.
they potentially, if there's a pot at the end of the year that we could do these need to be done.
These need to be done.
And if we can do it
That's
this
the
year.
12,600.
LER, it's 11,000.
11,000, yeah.
It is 12,600 over Riverview.
LER?
Yep, 11,000 at LER. Paving and repairs, I threw $5,000 in
Page
there.
3 from the beginning.
Carpets, we did some carpets last year. Again, they're all original carpets, 3 years old. So we're doing little bits and pieces. If I can get 2 to 3 classrooms done, we'll do that. The other piece that we're out of compliance with the sprinkler system is the 5-year sprinkler test. This is the year it needs to be done. So we will be out of compliance, coming up next year. So every 5 years, we have to do internals and, what they call hydro test of the system. So those are due.
Right, that's a big deal.
Fascia repairs, we've done all the shingles. Riverview, we redid all of the trim on the building, wrapped it in full coverage. This is LER's year to be done. I threw a placeholder $10,000. We're hoping to at least get the majority of it done. It all depends on how much of the fascia is deteriorated and rotted. So that'll all kind of depend. The other ones are just some roof inspections, little HVAC repairs. Under review, yes, the first one is the fire panel, the 12.6. Paving repairs down there and carpets. The same hydro test. And then the other 2 are similar to LER. A lot of these are consistent. Every school will need these testings done. Pittston, the siding. The siding is the same type of siding as Helen Thompson that we've been replacing for the past 5 or so years. There are some spots that are majorly deteriorated, really, really bad. So we would basically take the old composite, that's 35 years old, take it off and just match it in with the vinyl that's there. So it'd be matched vinyl siding that's there. They asked for a marquee sign. I put it in there. The high school, middle school, both those schools have lit marquee signs.
Yep.
Looking at, we did get a couple quotes in. No matter what we do, we're talking $25,000 by the time we're done with the sign. Once we get electric there, pedestal and everything, we're around the $25,000. This is the only school that asked for it, so I only put it at this school. Once we do it for one, the others will ask for it, I'm sure. So that'll be down the road piece. Paving repairs. This one here is the boiler replacement for the K1 wing. So I put a placeholder of $30,000 in there. That $30,000 is bare bones, basically putting a floor in and putting a new boiler up on the wall up above. This is not the complete boiler room renovation that EMC has looked at. EMC looked at, again, putting the floor, but doing 2 wall hung units, taking both boilers out and redoing all the pumping. I would love to think we could get all that done for $30,000, but this is just for taking out the old boiler, putting in a floor section, putting a boiler on the wall.
That floor
Just to get
section
through.
over that drain pit.
That'll barrier the pit from the boiler room above. Yeah.
$5,000 for window repairs. Is that ceiling? Did that mean-
So window repairs, this school has not had the windows repaired like the other schools have. This is for some new spring jams, clips, pins, and yes, sealing as necessary for the windows. There are some windows here that they don't use in some of the rooms. A lot of the classrooms have, 3 or 4 sets of windows. There may be one of the sashes that they don't stay up because the pins are broken or the springs are broken on them. So it's going through PMing all of the windows and making sure they're all operational. So that way, if somebody does go to put the window up, it will stay up in all the
It's right.
classrooms.
Another safety thing.
It's a PM, it's preventative maintenance, really is what it is. Yep. So that's Pittston. Helen Thompson would be to finish the last portion of the siding that we have left to do, which is on the kitchen section of the school. $20,000, we're hoping to get a couple fire doors that again have started to pin through with rust along the walls, is just to get those doors done. The same here, it's emergency lights, which we've done at a couple of the other schools already. Helen Thompson's on list to do. And a couple just minor, PM roofing, HVAC stuff. So as you can see, we don't have the big heat pump replacements in here, we're in a good spot right now where everything is
first.
working, working very nicely. Okay, Which
Excellent.
is good.
When you say pin through, you mean pinholes?
Pinholes rusting through. Yeah, along the bottoms, they start to rust through, and like we've done at the other schools, we've patched and bondoed. But once they start to come through, they tend to rust the jams. And then the holes start coming on the sides, and no matter how much weather stripping you put, it's holes along the bottoms, and the water starts leaking through, and then the carpet goes, and it's a snowball effect. So if we can get the doors under control, it'd be great. Yep. Middle school, another batch of exterior doors, same deal. Interior doorknobs. We just did it in regular PM this year, but the year before we did a whole batch. I think we had $10,000. We did doorknob replacements. These knobs are, well, 40 some odd years old and and they just don't work. They do lock, but you'll look at the handle, and the handle is just hanging down, or a lot of them may be just a round knob, which are not ADA compliant. So we'll switch out a doorknob. Again, you're talking at least $1,000, $1,500 per doorknob to replace. So we may get 5 doorknobs done for $5,000. It's not a lot, but at least we can go through and pinpoint the ones that need to be done for sure. Emergency lighting, there's a lot more emergency lighting at the middle school than there are at just the elementary school, so it's a bit more. And some flooring repair that was pulled out last year. I'd like to get it put back in there. Just again, it's not replacing any large section of flooring, but it's repairing the flooring that's there in certain spots. There's some elevator floors that need to be done. Same sprinkler hydro test. The bigger ticket item here is the shingled roof. We had 3 sections, three areas that blew off on the shingled roof last year, where we patched it in. The roof is at its 20-year mark. We didn't have any major leaking this year, but we're in a holding pattern. It's due. So $48,000 does one of the wings, basically, the larger of the 2 wings. Science tables. All of the other science tables have been replaced over the years. For some reason, one classroom was never replaced, and they are the legs. Actually, we just had we moved one of the tables, and the leg literally fell right off. So we had to patch it back in. So they are bad. They're really, really bad. So this is for
Those thick black tops.
yeah, the black tops. They're not like slate like they used to be.
Yeah.
Back, the original ones were all slate tops. These
Yeah.
ones are science composite top, but they're the same sort of look, the wood around, wood legs. So this is to do the 12 tables that are necessary for one of the classrooms. It's about $5,500. Yep. The high school, there's a couple question marks. That is for what EMC was talking about for the cabinet replacements and C-wing. We didn't have a number, so I just put a couple marks in there just as a reminder sort of piece. We have been over the past 5-6 years doing all of the curtain wall panels, and that's the C-wing panels. So we put another 15,000 in there. That gets us about 5 to 6 panels when you're looking at doing panel replacements.
Those are the
And
outside.
those are those 1-inch thick foam metal panels. So if you look at the outside of the building, the curtain wall, that is just a 1-inch panel. That's all that is on that whole section. C-wing, admin wing of the school. So that's all your insulation on your outside walls. That's it. And so these, they're all rusting through. We've painted them, patched them over the years, and when they pull them out, they put new weather stripping. So that's part of sealing up the walls where the water comes through.
Yeah.
The weather stripping, we've gotten to the point, we can't even keep it in the wall. We just keep putting some more caulking as needed. And there's so much movement on that wall because when the sun hits it, the panels contract and they literally walk down the wall, and that's why there's some gaps on the sides. So these new panels, they have the steel layer on both sides, the insulation, and all new weather stripping. That'll go in there. Again, we're not getting anywhere near as many panels as we used to over the years. So trying to get as much done as possible. We put back in some fencing around the football field. And the fencing is vintage from 76 when the field was built. So quite a bit of the fencing is really bad. We'd like to try to redo the fencing, especially along the entrance where the new ticket booth is. The recognition wall, to try to get all that cleaned up and taken care of. Same hydro test. Stair treads, and then the big ticket items are the roof. There are 3 sections that are slated for replacement. I was talking to Pat earlier. The section 1 is the tech wing. That's the section that we have the least problems with right now. Not saying we don't have leaks here and there, but we have the least amount of leaks out of these 3 sections in that portion. So the 2 sections, section 5A and section 5, that's the main office, the library sort of roof area in the admin wing section. Those 2 sections we've had quite a few leaks. Pretty much every storm, we have a couple leaks. We call Genie Roofing to come over and fix.
So section 1, you say is not critical?
Section 1, if anybody was looking at pushing a section out a 1 year, we could push section 1 out. So that is something that we could move.
And where exactly is that piece? T-wing?
What's that?
T-wing?
Yeah, that's
In
T-wing. Yeah, that's the whole roof on T-wing. And there again, it was done in 95, 96 when
In the nineties, right?
and we've already done a restore on it. So when they do a restoration of the roof that's there, because it's there's only a 15-year warranty. So after 15 years, they go through and we seal all of the seams, do any of the curbing areas. And hopefully we get another 5 years out of it. They look at 5, maybe 10, and we're well past them. So every year we're borrowed time. All 3 of these are over 30 years old, these sections.
You see the sprinkler test is every building this year.
Yep.
Is there any way to stagger these? Would you save money to do that?
Yeah.
We could try. Yep, definitely. It's just, that's the way they have been for years. So every 5, it comes around like every 5 years. So every 5 years, we have these standard tests that are in there. Yep.
It'd be nice to level that, so just every year we're doing.
Yeah, I know, every year we could do one. Yeah.
I mean, because what's the penalty if you don't test? What if you test only one building and not the other? What happened?
Well, it's through the fire marshal's office, so they can come in and
Shut us
shut
down.
us down. Or make us test it at that point.
I mean, that'd probably be the worst thing, they'd make you test.
Well, right, I mean, we would be out of compliance. So if something happened, somebody could go back and say, well, you're out of compliance, you never did the internal. The internals are meant for, so if something was to happen, there was a fire, if there's a lot of debris in the pipe, plugs up the sprinkler heads, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for doing the inspections. And we have had a lot of work done with our sprinkler systems. You know, these schools, people don't realize, but you know, all your sprinkler heads that are on the room side, they're full, they're flooded, they have water in them.
Do you have a dry or wet system?
We have dry systems and wet systems. So at most all the schools, the dry system, the whole attic is fully sprinkled. And it has air pressure in that whole system at all times. And the compressor in the boiler room that's pumping the air in there. So if there's pinhole leaks, that compressor runs all the time, or will run to try to keep up until we find and fix the leak. So it's a constant system that is always on, always running. So if we lose power at a school, that's an issue that comes up. We lose power, the compressor goes down. We have to go and manually close the dampers to make sure it doesn't flood that whole system, especially in the wintertime. It's very important.
Didn't we have an issue 1 year at
Riverview,
LER? Riverview, yeah.
we had an issue, quite a while back.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that was on the dry side that flooded,
Yeah.
broken pipes in the wintertime, and it flooded down through.
Library.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I've worked on them both, I know.
Yeah, so.
I know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, so definitely roof, is a big piece there, some HVAC. And superintendent's office. We would love to get a new front door, system for door entry. That would be a newer upgraded, system that would buzz people in. Some sort of front desk system that is tied into, again, access controls, would be great for the front door.
Yeah,
But
this
just at
is-
least getting a new front door, it is
Doesn't-
really in bad shape.
This, are you talking about this door here?
Yeah, the store here.
What's the issue with this door?
There are multiple times that people will just walk in. It doesn't latch properly. We've had.
Tried to fix it many times.
Yeah, right, and exactly. All of a sudden, somebody will show up upstairs and they didn't let them in, so they had no idea how they come in. So that's,
And you've tried to repair it many.
we have a lot of, the system, it just works on a magnet. We're close to the road. There's a lot of dust, dirt, debris
Debris.
that kind of flies in here.
Mhm.
And it doesn't take much. It doesn't. So we're constantly lubricating and maintaining it all the time. So to get some sort of system for here. Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much, transportation office, a couple doors too. That building is, getting quite up there in age and we just need to do a couple doors over there. Those ones we can do in-house. We just need to purchase some doors. And that's really it. That's a quick overview, but you have a hard copy, you can just go over it.
It's expensive, Gabe.
Everything, I know, everything is so much more expensive, labor cost. We try to do as much in-house as possible. We've been doing some heat pump repairs at the high school just to do what we can. Just bringing in somebody from another company, I mean, you're talking, $200 an hour. Travel charge to get there, the truck fees, it's so expensive.
How many people in your maintenance crew that can actually do maintenance?
We only have one maintenance guy that's on hand besides me.
For all these buildings?
Yep. Our head custodians try to do as much as possible, but there are certain things we can't do. We have Siemens that we have a service contract with, but it's a PM service contract, so it doesn't cover everything. So we do as much as we can with what we have. So, a lot of times it'll be, have the electrician come in, they disconnect and my Siemens gentleman will come in, disconnect what he can and we drop the units. So we try to do some of the big heavy lifting manual stuff ourselves to save us money. We have to.
We talked about this last year.
Yeah, we can't afford it. Too many, I mean.
And the weight also.
Not to keep saying this, we have the 6 buildings, it's a lot. To try to maintain all these 6 and keep them all going when they're at, their age.
And being able to get someone to come when you need them to come.
That is
And that's-
that, I know, I mean, schools are in session, you talk to the teachers, we're working in the halls, I'm up in a ladder in the ceiling and we're just outside the door and kids are walking around and they're wondering, wow, what's going on up there?
That's more interesting than what I'm
Yeah.
learning in my class.
Well, they see my computer going up there and they're like, oh, were you watching TV? I'm like, no, I'm not watching TV. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
Well, that's it for the agenda.
Well, the last thing is the Pittston Randolph Consolidated School Modular update.
Oh, yes.
And-
Yeah.
I asked Andrea, one of the attorneys who was really looking at the lease agreement had a family emergency and had to leave the country for that. So she's back, but it is still in the hands of the attorneys that they are now reviewing the lease agreement and the
Gotcha.
email communication. So I don't have any more of an update. So that is it.
Okay,
Make a motion that we adjourn?
All right.
Okay.
Usually do,
we don't usually
Motions?
motion to adjourn, but
we just adjourn. But if you want to, you have a motion in a second.
let's go.
Is that unanimous?
Yes, I would, if I can vote, I will
Okay.
do so.
All right, thank you.
You are right. It's a lot, Chuck.